Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective, spin on the world around me because that's my quote, but that's how I go about my life in a conservative manner. All right, so this episode is all about me chiming more in on the aspect of politics and music. So particularly I'm going to give my thoughts about the Marine rapper, and then I'm going to go back and talk about the history of rap, hip hop, and also give some aspects of, hold on, sweetheart, give my thoughts and aspects on rap artists who served the military and other artists who serve the military, how that relates to one another in the aspect of the different genres of music, and your thoughts, commentary on that. And also, feedback is greatly important, so feel free to create. I'm creating a community, so feel free to reach out to me either through email, Substack, or on YouTube. It'd be greatly appreciated. All right, so let's dive in. Of course, there are exceptions to things, and I think it's quite interesting when those exceptions or outliers, be it that, are showcased in music. And given the light and the aspect of what's going on in today in our country, it's a breath of fresh air, and it's very relieving to see particular artists like the Marine rapper getting their notoriety that he has. And looking in on it, it goes back and it gives reference to the true essence of what rap is all about. Merely lyrical, poetic expressions of your surroundings, of, so to speak, from, I'm talking about factual aspects, and then also from my personal understandings of what's going on around you. And it's quite interesting when someone takes the steps to prove how important it is to have your appreciation and your ties to your country, and to acknowledge how that shapes the backbone of culture. And then when we leak into that, we get all of the aspects that we need to understand in order to see what makes a country strong. Okay, and another point that I want to address, to add on to what I said previously, so it links to also, how is it that, particularly with rap and hip hop to a lesser extent, most of the time, if anything, most of the time it's more acceptable. So how did this happen to where rap, for the most part, centers around uplifting the negative aspects of commercial success, say it that of a first world country? What I mean by that is gloating proudly about access with cars, jewelry, and then going into the degradation about women, and then glorifying violence. And particularly, there's one genre of rap where they just talk about all the people that they murdered, and that's a thing. It's mind-boggling, how this is prevalent as a acceptable or a normal thing to hear in music, and the culture is acceptable too, and just deemed as normal. And so it's quite interesting. So some years back, there was a documentary that centered particularly around, I believe it was Interscope Records. I'm trying to think about that in my head, and I'll go back and clarify that. But as I go on at talking about everything in this episode, so I believe it was centered around Interscope Records and all the particular artists that were assigned to that label. And it's quite interesting with the aspect of rap and what is deemed as more sellable. So here we go. What am I saying about this? So with Eazy, Dr. Dre, and Ice Cube, with everything, with their persona, at a time when they were just up and coming, they were rapping about things that were respectable and that were relatable, that were easy going, but at the same time it had an edge, and to a lesser extent to have them stand out, versus other rappers and things, versus other genres of music, to make it known that this is specifically this type of niche music, that this is, we're not pop, we're not this, this is this category of rap. But how is it that they even said it, Dr. Dre and Ice Cube, how is it that being debaucherous, saying vulgar things, got their records to sell more? So what is that? How does that correlate? How does that interlink with the success and the image that we see today about rap, and how that's just a prevalent thing? That's something to wrap your head around and think about. That I wanted to put that out there in the atmosphere as we go further along into this episode. Okay, here we go. Let's get into the historical background of rap. Okay, so the particular documentary that I was referring to about Interscope Records, it is Interscope Records that's highlighted in this documentary. It is called The Defiant Ones. All right, so let me get into the aspect of talking about the origin of rap music. So, let me get that for you. All right, so here we go. So, rap musical style in which rhythmatic and or rhyming speech referred to chanting as rapped to musical accompaniment. So this backing music, which can include digital sampling, music and sounds are extracted from other recordings. This is linked to hip hop. The name used to refer to a broader cultural movement that includes rap, DJing, turntable manipulation, graffiti painting, and breakdancing. Rap, which originated in African American communities in New York City came to national prominence with Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight of 79. Rap's early stars included Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, Run DMC, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, who espoused a radical political message, and the Beastie Boys. The late 1980s saw the advent of gangster rap, which lyrics that were often misogynist or that glamorized violence and drug dealing. So the stars that included with this is Diddy, Snoop Dogg, Jay-Z, and Eminem, Kanye West, Lil Wayne, Outkast, Drake, and Nicki Minaj, to name a few. All right, so it's quite interesting with that. In this next segment, I'm going to give my thoughts and break that down. So I found that quite interesting with Outkast being a part of the category with the gangster rap and all of that. Because I just heard of their particular rap that had to do with the downfall of relationships and things of that nature. I could get it, but that's just very interesting to find out. And as I said before, if you're willing to open your mind and learn new things, to broaden your horizons and get a different perspective, and that's a good thing. And okay, so let me give my thoughts about the origin of rap. So it's quite interesting. I saw a different explanation too about rap, saying, to add on to this, saying that it started particularly in the 70s in New York, and it was from the anguish of living in the inner city, and particularly in the aspect of life, of the African American experience of life living in the urban city, particularly from living in New York. And so a song like Rapper's Delight is it's one of those things that catapults the different aspect of what rap can be and the downfall of going on to the gangster rap, which I think unfortunately happened as of, we're not credible enough, we're not outrageous enough, so let's push the ante, let's do this, let's do that. And then it's also another thing to say this too: if you're crying out about the representation, particularly with the African American representation in media and music and so on and so forth, is bad. Okay, if you're saying this, why would you rally around something, particularly with the gangster rap that was prevalent and is still growing prevalent and getting even more outrageous and more debaucherous? Why would you rally against that if you want something that has a much better representation of your race? That's also something to keep in mind. So, going back to Rapper's Delight. So, it goes with that aspect of that old school is the best school notion. So when you go, this song is something that is relevant to all races, and then it relates to all types of people. And then something as simple as talking about bad food that you had, and but also putting humor into this aspect of dealing with these circumstances that arise because of this food, and the aspect of living in poverty, but also talking about different aspects of living in the city, living in having a urban lifestyle. And so when you get into it was interesting talking about Grandmaster Flash and people like that. And it's prevalent to also point out, particularly, I think I'm getting him right, with white lights, white lights, do. And then, that's about snorting cocaine. And so that is prevalent to highlight the aspect of the drug culture going on in the 1980s. And particularly that was a whole thing in itself, saying, particularly with cocaine and crack, and saying that crack is something that's linked to the urban cities, and then cocaine is more of upscale, which is, what are you talking about? It's ridiculous. It's not a good thing when you get down to that aspect of drugs. It's just never a good thing. But being honest, talking about that was a part of a prevalent thing that was going on as far as a cultural academic of talking about the differences between that. And that's speaked upon on Grandmaster Flash. And then you have Kurtis Blow talking about, hey, these are all the breaks. Give it up, give it up, give it up. And, stuff like that, talking about the nuances of bad relationships and things like that. And then you get on to going into the 90s and, hey, we got to be more hardcore. We got to be more street reputable. And now let me get back to Eric. Let me highlight to Eric B. and Rakim. So those cats, they were one of those things that gives the medium ground of, okay, talking about their past, their wrongs, and then also on the other hand, with Paid in Full, but also on the other hand, talking about the paths to take to get out of that situation of crime. And then talking about other aspect of sort of the way they put in the nuances of jazz and influencing that, getting back to that poetry flow of speaking about things, of their experiences with how they see things, is quite interesting. And it also speaks to the aspect of the culture, particularly in the 80s, how it was a atmosphere of allowing all these different artists to come and showcase things, and then give people different perspective about things, and just instead of seeing things from a narrow tunnel point of view. And so, getting into the 90s and the whole aspect of gangster rap. And so how is it that, again, you cry and scream, you say, oh, nobody takes us seriously. Now, this is, of course, I don't have that perspective because, again, as I said, I see things from a conservative point of view. I walk my life like that, and then when I see stuff that's in a bad light of me being an African American woman, or a bad light of my culture, why give that attention? Why support that? You know? And so, needless to say, that in the 90s, that was the height, the mecca of centering around gangster rap. And so you got all these prevalent artists talking about the degradation, the gangster thug life. And it got to a point to where it had all these East Coast, West Coast beefs where that was prevalent as part of the, as it's termed, the legacy media. And because those aren't notable, reputable things, as, and I'm going to quote that and give credit to he's a really good YouTuber. I don't know why I can't think before you sleep, that guy, because that is quite interesting how he coined that, because that is something to think about, because people don't really watch, particularly with broadcasts and cable outlets and satellite. People don't really do that anymore. So it's legacy, and then versus today we live in streaming and apps and things like that. And then if you want to see the legacy media, you can see that through an app or a streaming device, what have you. So, it got to the point to that was part of news, that tearing up communities of street gangster culture, that was just a normal thing to see, which is outrageous, and highlighting and then on top of this, escalating glorifying the aspect of being in gangs and talking about things like that. And then even the aspect of going on to Ice-T, talking about cop killer, pig, I hate you, blah, blah, blah. And then turning around and having a new perspective with him being in a show that he is a cop. And then, as I said, again, about Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, well, more Ice Cube, depicting himself as a family man. Okay, well, it's one thing, and I would encourage y'all to watch that. The Defiant Ones documentary is really good. All right, so it's one thing, to say that you want to be a rap artist, but it's another thing to say it's better to be a rap artist that's more sensationalized to debauchery. And that's what, because let's turn our focus and our energy towards that, because that's sales. So it begs the question, are you really in it to highlight the aspect of reality of the different types of people that happen to be black, the different the facets of that, or are you just looking for a paycheck and then you just cower down at any cost? It's something to really think about there now. And I get it, to try to remedy things, to offset everything that you did in your past, but you also gotta take light to that too. And it's boggling to think about. And then you get into the aspect of, oh no, I see rap as it's not all like that. I like it because of the glamorous lifestyle and the things like that. Well, there's other aspirations to look towards, the aspirations to look towards rap artists that talk about things that are humbling, that talk about things as far as the real aspect of dealing with your plight in this life, whether that be a man and his outlook or his position in a modern society, and then the female point of view about the nuanced things of giving a real conversation of femininity, and then talking about things like that from it's hard pressed to find examples where there's a female artist that says, hey, myself as a female, I have these different thoughts about my place in society, my place as where I find my values in, my place of how I feel about myself and family, or my place of how I feel about education, my place of how I feel about the community in which I grew up in. Talking about things like that, there'll be the realm of, and then, this being a support system of uplifting these type of artists. It would just change the aspect of the stereotypes of what a black person is. But needless to say, that doesn't happen. So I think it's very important when there are rap artists who go against the grain and they decide to just say, hey, you know what? I want to speak about things from an educated and an evolved perspective and see where this goes. And it's wonderful that the Marine rapper had that opportunity. And it's more cases like him. And it's good to know that. But it's just unfortunate how that is overshadowed with what is particularly thought of about the main culture of rap music. All right, so here we go. I'm going to change gears and talk about the background of hip-hop. And then I'm going to get into talking about the Marine rapper, and give facts on that. And then I'm going to end on talking about different artists. I'm going to highlight rap artists that also serve the military, and then go in to talk about different artists outside of rap that served in the military, and how those aspects of those different artists, what kind of from my point of view, the depth that they gave to their set genre, and then also talk about their set genre too. How, things change. For instance, rock, country, and so forth. And then, getting into pop-ish, rockish, those subcategories too that links to some of these artists. All right, let's dive in, y'all. Let's dive in, everybody. Let's dive in, y'all. Okay, so with hip-hop, I'm going to break that down for you. And here we go. Okay, so essentially with hip-hop, it's all centered around, and it's interesting because of the ties that it has to breakdancing. So it's like this. Although widely considered a synonym for rap music, the term hip-hop refers to a complex culture comprising of 4 elements. And these 4 elements is DJing or turntabling, rapping, also known as MCing or rhythm, graffiti painting, also known as graph or writing, and b-boying, which is the style of hip-hop dance, style and the attitude and the stance, and this is prevalent from the 1980s with the breakdancing, out of the breakdancing movement. So, along with the sort of viral body language that philosopher Cornel West describes as the 5th element, knowledge of self-consciousness, and sometimes added to the list of hip-hop elements, particularly by socially conscious hip-hop artists and scholars. So hip-hop originated in the predominantly African-American, economically depressed South Bronx section of New York City in the late 70s. As the hip-hop movement began at society's margins of the origin and the myth and the enigma of it. So as I said about breakdancing, the aspect of the culture that first caught public attention had the least lasting effect. So the graffiti movement started out of this 1972 by a Greek American teenager who signed or tagged Taki 183. His name and street was 183 Street. On walks through the New York City subway system. So by 75, youths in the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn were stealing. Okay, let me say that again. Were stealing into train yards under cover of darkness to spray paint colorful, rural-sized renderings of their names, imageries, and underground comics and televisions, and even Andy Warhol, like Campbell soup cans on the side of the subway cars. And that's very interesting how, it came to be, how that transcends to the aspect of modern art, particularly with graffiti and that one particular, I can't think of, I don't know why I can't, he's well known, but the UK artist that is infamous, nobody really knows his name, but there's a lot of lore behind him where he goes and does graffiti as a art statement, and he's an artist, and it's interesting how those ties lead to that too, and the aspect of art. Okay, so soon influential art dealers in the United States, Europe, and Japan were displaying graffiti in major galleries. New York City Metropolitan Transit Authority responded with barbed wire fences, paint removing acid baths, and undercover police squads. All right, so here we go. I'm going to highlight one of the prolific, it's a lot of different, as it's listed, and as I heard about DJ Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash, and things of this nature. And so I'm going to go into more about that and then get into Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, and particularly with the message. So Kool Herc was widely credited as the father of modern rapping for his spoken interjections over records. But among the wide variety of this is cited for MCing, it is linked to the historical aspect of what was going on in the West African as talking with an accompaniment of blues songs, so Jailhouse Toast, and as it's the jargon of it. So this is long rhythm poems recounting outlandish deeds and misdeeds. And a dozen of the ritualized word game based on exchanging insults, usually about members of the opponent family. It's quite interesting how that the understanding how that nothing is truly original, so to speak, that there is a way of doing something to presenting something that is not new, but making it your own. And there's a lot of dedication and art that comes with that. And then also, again, I can't stress enough, to understand your history, you know where you're going in your future. And then it is quite interesting how it highlights that, you know, this aspect of where hip hop and rap comes from. It comes from poetry, speaking, lyrical aspects of, and then also the ties to the African roots of what they were using it for, and then, you know, the heritage of understanding your roots and how that correlates to the way you see yourself in culture and the way you see yourself in art and everything else, and how that is represented. And that's quite interesting to how that relates to how, particularly in hip hop, where that goes as far as respecting it. So, okay, let me talk about Grandmaster Flash. So it's quite interesting with that song, as I was mentioning about the message, how it's one of those things where it's you can hear all the anguish and the political stance against, and then talking about the realities of living in the inner city, and then how from an honest point of view, what happens when you have the aspect of governmental assistance ruling the government ties ruling the communities without people coming together and helping each other and looking out for each other. And then even the aspect of talking about one of the singers talking about, you know, whizzing on the street, don't push me 'cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Ha 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 ha. You know, and then going into talking about, you know, it's a jungle sometimes. Sometimes I wonder how I keep on going under. You know, stuff like that. And it's highlighting how highlighting and also focusing in on being aware of your circumstances and trying to find your way through it, and then trying to find your sanity in that. And the aspect of putting that forefront to get people to realize these situations of what happens, as I said again, when communities don't rely on each other to try to make everything better, as far as from an economical point of view. It's just all government assisted and misassisted with what is going on with citizens. And it's very unfortunate. And it also pinpoints to the importance of what can happen when you try to and you dare to use your platforms to talk about issues like that. And so here we go. So and then it is going into talking about rap. So rap first came to national prominence, as I said, about the Rapper's Delight Sugar Hill Gang. But also to add on to this was an independent African American owned label, Sugar Hill. And that's quite, the whole notion that it's hard pressed for particularly African American, people to have their own businesses and to be seen as respectable and well-known and renowned and international. When here we go, this is another case in point. There's many case in point, which I will talk about in future episodes about the strides and the achievements of African Americans throughout history, and then, even today, prominent African American people. And it's a shame that there's still pushing narrative that African Americans are just downtrodden. They're just depressed and repressed, which is, what is that about? As we're living in a times where it's more and more opportunity for a lot of people, but at the same time, when the powers that be, particularly with presidential powers, when they don't have the best interest for people at heart, it's only their self-indulgent interest, then everything goes awry. And then playing victimhood, that helps nothing. All right, so, and then it goes on to talk about how Def Jam Records came to be, and how artists like De La Soul, they started to infuse, artists like De La Soul, they infused things from hip hop and rap and jazz, and a very, very eloquent way of speaking and presenting themselves as far as their style of songs. And then, now this isn't aging well. It's unfortunate with Will Smith, with how he is, and the insanity that unfortunately happens in the entertainment industry. But, highlighting him and MC Hammer, how they were able to cross over to pop success because they had the appeal that was relatable to a lot of people, to where it started to take notice of this type of music. And it's interesting how that when you have that self-conscious aspect in your mind, that when you present yourself in a way that is not so controversial, that's not so politically charged, to where it's a militant sort of aspect or debauchery to a grander extent, it gets to the heart of the matter of connecting people through music. And that's what's really important to understand, as far as the aspect of producing music. And so, as I mentioned about, it's just nuts how NWA is what I was talking about with that documentary with the Defiant Ones, going in on talking about how they did at one point, when they were starting their careers, they would say respectable things, and even more along the lines talking about women in a respectable manner. But that didn't translate to lucrative opportunities. So if de facto women are, female dogs and so forth, and in this and that, and it's just wow. And then also the aspect of, as I mentioned before, about, here we go, talking about Ice-T and Snoop Dogg and this gangster rap. So as Los Angeles-based label Death Row Records built an empire around Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and the charismatic career of, and it was very interesting, finding out things about Tupac Shakur, that, he was not, he was just a performer initially starting out, and then he took on this role as being a gangster rapper when that's not his true, that's just not what his background is, and it's really wild to think about that. So, and then also, this is an aging well with Bad Boy Records and all the, I don't even know what to say about that, with Sean Diddy, Who, Combs, whatever, it's always changing something different in 5 minutes, name, and all the allegations and all the things going on and all the proof of his outrageous behavior is just, it's wow. It's mind-boggling how certain things like this is just a lot of other examples, but it's just prevalent how it's just accepted in the entertainment industry. It's just I don't know. It's really, and I'd like to know what you all think about the aspect of that's kind of mentality. What do you guys think about that? Why, how that's just accepted, and why is that a thing? And I mean, to me personally, it just seems like it's a thing where if you allow something to happen and you don't take a stand, it just gets worse and worse. I don't know, but I would just like to know what you all think. Either email me, find me on X or on Substack, or make comments on YouTube. It'd be greatly appreciated. So, the rivalry started to come again, as I was talking about earlier, but this is more pinpointed towards the West Coast rapper, East and West Coast rappers, as I was, highlighting on, and all of the murders that came from Tupac Shakur and Notorious B.I.G. So, by the late 1990s, hip-hop was artistically dominated by the Wu-Tang Clan from New York City, Staten Island, whose combination of street credibility, new Islamic mystic, and kung fu lore made them one of the most complex groups in the history of rap. And also it goes along the lines of talking about how rap and hip-hop took international form, to where you see this culture being influenced not only in the U.S. of how it shaped the music scene, but also internationally with and Paris and London and Tokyo and Sydney, Cape Town, Bristol, and so forth that it mentions. And also, that I have seen growing up, and then the, people talking about it, particularly with MTV raps and stuff like that. And then when they would go out and go to other countries and ask people and interview people and talk to them about hip hop, rap, stuff like that, and how they feel. And then it was just very interesting to see all their perspectives from an international point of view about rap and hip hop. So going on to the 21st century. So again, here we go with talking about how hip hop. Okay, so let me start again. So it's focusing in on hip hop. So hip hop suffered at least as severely as worse than other genres, with sales of tumbling of sorts throughout the decade. Similarly, through it, what found solidarity with standing as dominant influence on global youth culture. So when I remember with the boy band craze, and that's still, now it takes a form of K-pop and stuff like that. But with as in this talking about Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and their style and flow of how they sung songs, and particularly with which I see what they're alluding to with NSYNC talking about beatboxing with the intro for Dirty Pop and stuff like that, and how the hip hop sound changed shape with going on to rhythm and blues and even gospel. And then the prominent people that highlighted this is Mary J. Blige, Kirk Franklin, and unfortunately is not aging well with the horrific aspect of R. Kelly. But that's something within itself. So, again with, what do you all, because they're saying that Outkast, again with the whole thing with Outkast being gangster rap, I don't know, because they had that's interesting to learn, but yet and still, I don't know if that's really good to categorize them in that aspect, because a lot of their songs had a lot of sophisticated and eloquent aspects to it. And I'd like to know what you guys think. Do you think that they would be considered gangster rap or so? Leave me comments through YouTube and so forth. I would like to know what y'all think about that. And so here we go with the aspect of talking about how, and I'm going to end on this, talking about how artists like Jay-Z and artists like Ludacris and artists like this, and then going in on Snoop Dogg, how they were able to mainstream the aspect of don't pay attention to my gangster thug sort of roots. Look at my nuance of me being this sort of, which Jay-Z and tried to brand himself with a Renaissance man, and how that ties into the aspect of seeing gangster rap in a way to where it I don't know. It's just insane to me how it links into aspects in culture that it shouldn't link into. So, for instance, with Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart teaming up, and then the aspect of fashion with Louis Vuitton and stuff like that, and being a spokesmodel for that, and then they going again with, Martha Stewart is supposed to be the aspect of, starting out with homemaking, and then the aspect of culinary achievement and things. And then you see her talking about for shizzle my nizzle and stuff like that. It's like, why would you cheapen your persona like that? It's just something how that can consciously be rebranded to the aspect of being acceptable when in reality it's just a clown show. And so I'm going to go on and talk about the Marine rapper. Okay, so Raymond Lott, better known as the Marine rapper, is stated as saying his music is heavily influenced by metal, hip-hop, country, and his service in the U.S. Marine from 2004 to 2014, where he completed 2 combat tours and 1 deployment to Africa, earning a combat action ribbon in Iraq. So in February of 2021, the Marine rapper achieved his first Billboard hit single featuring on hip-hop artist Topher track, The Patriot. And this is what, and the come on, sweethearts. And these are the songs that I'm most familiar with: The Patriot and Let's Go Brandon. And so The Patriot hit the Billboard charts at number 1. Let's Go Brandon hit the Billboard charts at number 6. And the third Billboard, and this was in October of 2021. And in November of 2021, there was a third Billboard number 7 hit single with I Left My Home. Okay. Go inside, okay? Okay, I'll be right there with you. Okay? Excuse me, my baby's. Okay. Okay, I'll be right there. I'll be right back, okay? Come on. All right. Be right back. All right. I gotta take care of them. They come first. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay. All right, so I think it's important to highlight a rapper like this. So particularly, it just goes to say, no, even in times where they say, oh, that's too edgy, or that's too, you can't do stuff like this or say stuff like this in this type of era. Oh, that's, you can't, you wouldn't be able to get your voice heard. And it's commendable and it's wonderful that artists and people like this, they stand to understand the importance of using their platforms to address and highlight the issues that we are facing in our society. And particularly with Raymond Lott's work, I'm going to focus in on The Patriot and Let's Go Brandon. So with The Patriot, it talks about the aspect of defending and protecting and being very respectable. The best way I can describe it, I'm to get into the right aspect of this. So it's like this: when you have the notion of understanding the honor behind protecting something that's very valuable, which is the state of your country, and you highlight that it will showcase to the world about your stance on how your values and where you stand on your issues line up. So, and then when people see that on a world stage, they take you more seriously as a nation. And then you become more seen as something to have respect for, instead of seen as something to just overlook or infiltrate and get to the point of the matter when we talk about war and the aspects of war, of striking it down and annihilating, so to speak, to be in the reality of the sense of the situation. And I think it's great when you also get into the aspect of talking about the absurdity of your political performers, so to speak, because that's what they are. It's unfortunate that's what most of them are. And the democratic realm. Now, there are some not very suitable characters in the Republican realm, but it's very unfortunate that, honestly, a lot of this just ridiculous behavior and flip-flopping and, double talk comes from Democrats. And to say in a clever way, it's when to pick up on that, when the incompetency of thinking that they're saying, thinking that they're saying, let's go in support of the current president, and, of Biden, and let's go Biden, but they're saying, F the word, F you, Biden, and you know where I'm getting into that. And not understanding that they're making fun of you. And then I think it's great and it's really funny that the Marine rapper took that and ran with it by making the song Let's Go Brandon as highlighting the aspect of speaking out against the corruption and the indecency of the Biden administration. It's great. And so it's really remarkable when, as I was mentioning earlier, when you get the outliers and you got the outliers in music who take a stand to talk about real issues, and then how that changes the formation of music. And then when people get behind this and support this and make this to an aspect to where it's really well known, it's great. It just proves another point of what people really care about. And it also proves another point of how people feel and what people think about the situation in which they're living in, and from a political point of view too. That's something to really consider when talking about the aspects of music, and then also talking about the aspect of the great things that can happen when rap is used to go against what is predominantly seen, the negative side of rap, to go against that and bring rap back to something that can be a positive form. All right, so let me get into the last aspects of talking about rappers who served in the military, and then going on to other artists who served in the military. Okay, so here is a list with 3 legendary rappers who served in the U.S. military. And also to note that there's some hip-hop artists, how that relates to everything. Some hip-hop artists, as far as MC Hammer, he served in the military. And then, it takes an aspect of how that military life shaped his career, and even through the trials and tribulations of his career, how that all shaped it, and how that turned around and translates to other aspect of, going into rappers and things like that. How, serving the country at one point, but yet getting to the aspect of highlighting and focusing in on illegal criminal activity as glorifying that. Like, how does that relate? And it's quite interesting because my husband, he served in the military, particularly in the Army, and he said that he saw a lot of young guys coming in. They were rapping, wanted to rap and stuff like that, and talk about the aspect of rap in their lives, and how everything like that, and how they came and wanted to come to the military, serving in the military, so it can change their lives, so they can have a path, they can have goals. And then it's quite interesting how looking in on this points of view, how that relates to the aspect of rap and culture, and wanting to escape out of the inner city life, but yet and still, I don't know how that makes sense, but I don't know how that makes sense, but I don't know. It's just something to really look at. So let that make sense to me. And I don't know, what do you guys think about that? It just, I don't understand it, but I would like to know what your thoughts on rappers, well-known rappers serving in the military, but also the aspect of them highlighting talking about going against the importance of serving your community, getting involved in highlighting, getting involved in illegal activity and things like that, along the nature of that. What do you all think about that? So, number 1, it says Cannabis. He served in the Army. So Cannabis is only known for joining the service after already reaching moderate success in the rap game. In an interview with SOHH I'm not sure how to pronounce that. He said, I enlisted in the Army because I wanted to get away from the music. I wanted to do something that gave me a separate definition for what I had done all through my teens and 20s. I was 28 when I enlisted. During the time in the military, he famously put out the military freestyle video below. And it's below this post. And if you are interested in this, seeing this, I will have that link in this episode for my sources. So, number 2, Ice-T. Notorious talking about cop killer and things like that. So, let's get into this. Okay, before he notoriously made much criticized songs as cop killer, Ice-T served 4 years in the Army, coming straight out of high school. He gets this. His reasoning for joining the Army is because he was in amazing shape following his high school gymnastic career and figured it would be a fitting transition to go into the Army forces. During his service, Ice provided to be a model soldier. He recruited when he quickly moved up from basic training to advanced infantry, training to be a certified airborne. Ice-T, however, was granted an honorable discharge because he was the sole supporter of his infant daughter at the time. And ending with Nate Dogg. So, Nate Dogg was part of the Marine Corps. Before he was making catchy hooks and on famous collaborations with legendary artists such as Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. And it's interesting, Snoop Dogg being brought up because found out that he is, which I didn't know at all, he is a military brat, so he was raised with the influence of the military. And it says Snoop Dogg and Warren G and Nate Dogg joined the Marines straight out of high school. Nate was stationed in Okinawa, Japan at Camp Hinenoke. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. As a part of the battalion readiness material of the 3rd Forces, and it served support group of the 3FSSG, which serves as the ammunition supply hub to most of the Pacific. He was, however, honorably discharged after 4 years of service. Although it was not confirmed, reasons for the discharge ranged from smoking weed to being arrested for an altercation after an incident with an unfaithful girlfriend. And all this, and then also to add on to this, I think it's interesting that Shaggy has military backgrounds too. And, how all of this correlates to the reasons people have for serving the community, and then the aspect of what their entertainment careers go on to and the reasons for these things. I don't know, it's quite interesting. And also to highlight with people like Ice-T and stuff like that, as I mentioned earlier, saying, highlighting the thug life and everything too, but having a change of heart and saying I'm reformed, and then getting into a respectable and suitable roles later on in the careers. It's just, I don't know, it's mind-boggling to me. All right, so here we go. I'm going to shift and end on talking about other artists that served in the military. All right, so Jimi Hendrix. So military.com cites that Jimi Hendrix decision to enlist in the Army wasn't completely by free will. It was either serve or do jail time. He was given honorable discharge a year into his 3-year term. And that's, excuse me. It's quite interesting with the aspect of how that correlates to the realm of rock and the aspect of highlighting things of talking about your place and your way in the realm of the political aspect of the government, of speaking out against the government and things like that, and how that links into the persona of the rock mentality of going against the system and stuff like that. And then there's also, it gives another aspect of the mentality and the reasons for how the military can give perspective about things too. And so with Fred Durst, Fred Durst spent 2 years in the Navy, but he left at the age of 20 to start a career as a tattoo artist. And then, with Limp Bizkit and everything, and it's kind of interesting too how, he got into that hip-hop, rap, southern sort of aspect of hip-hop and rap, and how, again, that his training and his background doesn't quite correlate to his entertainment aspect, and his persona is very interesting. Oh, I keep pressing that. Sorry, y'all. All right, so John Fogerty. So the Creedence Clearwater Revival frontman told Army.com he had been drafted in 1966 for the Vietnam War, but instead went to a local Army Reserve recruiter to sign up. He was discharged in 1967, just in time for a band to kick off. And that's, that's interesting how that kind of persona with rock is relatable and is showing in this aspect of military life. So Jason Everman. Jason Everman briefly played in Soundgarden and Nirvana before serving multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan with the Army, as this was mentioned by the New York Times. So this is quite interesting too, of serving your country and the stance of that, and how that relates to your aspect of your point of view about things, and how you present yourself as far as an other outlet to the persona of rock. So B.B. King, according to American Blues Scene, B.B. King had a lot of farm work experience. He joined the Army at the end of World War II, but was released because they felt his skills as a tractor driver were important for the economy. And see, this also highlights to the aspect of, artists like B.B. King, and then things of this nature going into the soul and the R&B, and then talking about their experience, particularly with heartbreak and things like that, and then also the happy highlights of life too. But B.B. King is one of those main aspect of go-to singers that you reflect on and think about as far as soul and R&B and of the heights that he reached. And again, it's the aspect of being relatable, using your music to be relatable to a lot of people, and having the sophistication and the pride in your work. And then this highlights too to his background, how, you know, he served the discipline of serving in the army, and then also the discipline of working on a farm, and how skilled he was, that and it was sought after that he was able to make a life for himself. And that's greatly important. And it also highlights the importance of how capitalism, in its essence, it doesn't see color. And then with all it sees is giving you the opportunity if you sought after it, and it giving you the opportunity if you work and require the skills to achieve it, and you know it work in your favor. And that's something to really also think too in the aspect of B.B. King and his history. All right, so I'm going to end on talking about Jerry Garcia and Chris Henderson. So Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead icon, told Rolling Stone he was forced to join the Army in '60 as a punishment for stealing his mom's car. He was given a general discharge later that year due to his lack of involvement. And this is quite interesting. So Jerry Garcia, you know, with a whole Grateful Dead movement, and with his sort of hippie persona, well, not sort of, but his hippie persona is with the Grateful Dead is what they were, that psychedelic rock is what they were highlighting. And then it's interesting how, you know, his disdain towards having the respect towards serving the country, how that links to the aspect of the particular type of band which evolved, in which he was the frontman for. And then it's also interesting how the hippie movement is seen as the aspect of not taking responsibility. It's just whatever feels good, you know. And then it's something to know that this was a part of his background. It's really interesting. So Chris Henderson, a guitarist, 3 Doors Down, is a veteran of the U.S. Navy. Both his grandfather and his father also served, so he knew he wanted to enlist in the Navy since he was a kid. That's admirable too. And then you see that in the aspect of again with 3 Doors Down. Oh yeah, I didn't particularly know this about him, but the aspect of what I'm going towards with 3 Doors Down, a lot of times of what they talk about has to do with the internal struggle and the psychological aspect of correlating, protecting and the public and serving the public, particularly with Superman and a superhero with that song, and then other songs that are similar to that. But really my point is revolving around the whole aspect of the themes of their songs. It has to do with your moral compass and your character. What do you do? Where do you stand? Where do you place yourself out, and how do you react to adversity? All right. So this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. And absolutely, you all, feel free to give me your thoughts and comments and everything else you think about this. And then your thoughts in general about music. What do you think as far as the aspect of music and using your height of fame and your not political genre, sorry, that's the wrong way. Your genre to speak about things. What do y'all think about that when celebrities do that? They use their platforms to speak on things and everything else. I would be interested to know what you all think. So either leave me comments through emails, through X, through Substack, or on YouTube. It'd be greatly, greatly appreciated. Tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care out there. Bye-bye now.